It took me nearly a lifetime to say this without dressing it up, without softening it to protect anyone's comfort. I'm not saying it with bitterness. I'm not saying it with anger. I'm saying it with the kind of calm you only earn when you've watched enough years pass to understand what people really do, not just what they promise. Here's the truth I've landed on at this age, as a woman who has lived long enough to see patterns repeat themselves. I trust myself first, and I don't automatically trust anyone else, sometimes not even family. Now, I know how that sounds. It sounds harsh. It sounds lonely. It sounds like a woman who got hurt and never healed. But listen to me before you judge it, because I didn't begin life this way. Most of us don't. When you're young, you're taught something that feels like a law of nature. Family is your safe place. Family is loyalty. Family is where you can rest without keeping one eye open. Family is where love is supposed to be unconditional. Family is where people show up because they're yours. And for a long time, I believed that. I lived like that. I gave without keeping score. I trusted without checking. If someone shared my blood, my name, my history, I assumed that meant something would be protected between us, something sacred. That belief shaped my whole way of moving through the world. It made me generous. It made me forgiving. It made me patient. It also made me blind. Because life doesn't break your illusions in one loud moment. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder one day and say, everything you believe is wrong. It's quieter than that. It happens in small cuts you can explain away. A promise that doesn't get kept. A phone call that never comes. A situation where you expected support and you got silence. A moment where you realize you've been carrying the relationship on your back and calling it love. At first, you excuse it. You tell yourself they're tired, they're stressed, they didn't mean it, they'll do better next time. You protect the picture you have of them because it's easier than accepting the truth. And maybe that's human. Maybe that's what most of us do, longer than we should. I remember how it started for me. Not one dramatic betrayal, not some movie scene with shouting and slammed doors. It was simpler, almost worse, because it was harder to point to. It was the slow feeling of being misunderstood and then expected to be fine about it. It was being needed when I had something to give and forgotten when I needed something back. It was realizing that some people loved the role I played more than they loved me. Sometimes harm doesn't arrive with a villain. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet realization. People will choose themselves, even the ones you never thought would. And that's when something inside you changes. Not overnight, slowly. You begin to listen differently. You start watching instead of believing. You start noticing patterns rather than clinging to words. Because words are easy. Anyone can say, I love you. Anyone can say, I'm here. Anyone can say, you can count on me. But time is honest. Time shows you who actually shows up. Time shows you who stays consistent. Time shows you who remembers you when there's nothing to gain. And if you pay attention, age gives you a strange gift, clearer eyesight, not in your eyes, but in your judgment. When I was younger, I thought being a good woman meant always giving people the benefit of the doubt. I thought it meant keeping the peace, forgiving quickly, trusting easily, smoothing things over so nobody felt uncomfortable. I thought if I could just be loving enough, patient enough, understanding enough, I would earn the kind of relationships that never crack. But here's what no one teaches you when you're young. If you are always the one who understands, always the one who forgives, always the one who gives more, you end up training people in how to treat you. Not with your speeches, not with your intentions, with your tolerance. And once that pattern settles into a family, into a marriage, into a friendship, it can become the way everyone expects you to be. The one who takes it, the one who adjusts, the one who doesn't mind, the one who will be fine until you aren't. I don't regret being kind. I don't regret loving deeply. Love was never the mistake. What I regret is how long I delayed protecting myself. I regret believing that closeness guaranteed respect. I regret believing shared history guaranteed loyalty. I regret believing blood guaranteed consideration. Because closeness doesn't guarantee anything. Not honesty, not care, not fairness, not protection. People are complicated. People are shaped by fear, by selfishness, by insecurity, by addiction, by money, by pride, by pressure. And when those things are loud enough inside them, they don't always behave the way you hope they would, no matter what your relationship is. That truth hurts, yes. It comes with a quiet grief. Not the dramatic grief people notice, a softer grief. the grief of letting go of an idea you relied on for decades. But here is what matters, and what I wish someone had told me earlier. Letting go of that illusion does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become cold. It does not mean you become heartless. It means you begin to place your trust with care, with intention, with wisdom, and most importantly, you begin to place your trust in the only person whose presence is guaranteed, yourself. Because you are the one who wakes up with your mind every day. You are the one who carries your memories. You are the one who lives inside your consequences. You are the one who has to handle the mess when somebody else didn't mean it. That's not a lonely thought if you understand it correctly. It can actually be the most grounding realization of your life. Once you accept it, you stop expecting other people to complete what is your responsibility. You stop handing pieces of your life over just because someone claims the title of family. You stop confusing love with access. I've watched too many people my age suffer because they trusted too quickly and too completely, especially when it came to money, housing, and independence. They handed over control of their finances because someone said, "I'll take care of it." They put a child's name on a house because someone promised, "You'll always be safe here." They signed papers they didn't fully understand because they didn't want to seem suspicious. They stayed quiet because they thought questioning someone was rude. And sometimes it works out beautifully, but many times it doesn't. Not always because family is evil. Sometimes nobody planned to hurt anyone, but life changes people. People get married, they move, they get influenced by spouses, they get stressed, they get greedy, they get busy. Priorities shift. And then the older person who spent a lifetime being responsible finds themselves with less voice, less dignity, and fewer options than they ever imagined. That is a terrifying place to end up. So yes, one of the biggest values I have now is independence. Not independence in a loud, proud way. Not, "I don't need anyone." That's not what I mean. I mean the kind of independence where you still have a say in your own life, where your decisions are yours, where you don't have to ask permission to live in your own home, spend your own money, see your own friends, or make choices about your own body. That independence begins with how you trust. Trust is not something you give away automatically. Trust is something that grows slowly, through consistency, through time, through observation, not through labels, not through titles, not even through shared memories. At this stage of my life, I don't rush to trust anybody, not because I'm afraid, but because I respect my peace. I pay attention. I watch what people do. I notice how they behave when things are smooth, and I notice who they become when things get difficult. Because hardship reveals character faster than comfort ever will. And when you start living like that, something interesting happens. You become calmer. You become less reactive. You become less disappointed. Not because people suddenly improved, because your expectations got wiser. You stop being shocked when someone chooses what benefits them. You stop taking it personally. You simply see it clearly and adjust your distance accordingly. That doesn't mean you cut everyone off. It means you keep your center of gravity inside yourself. You don't lean so heavily on other people that you lose your balance when they move. And people will move. People always move. They change their minds. They change their loyalties. They change their version of the story. They shift when new relationships enter their life. They make choices that make sense to them, even if it hurts you. So if you build your security on other people staying the same, you will suffer. But if your foundation is inside you, you can notice the shift and remain standing. I still care about people. I still enjoy company. I still laugh. I still share stories. I still love. But there is a boundary now, a quiet one, a steady one. It says, no matter what happens out there, I will be okay in here. And that boundary is not cold. It's protective. It is what gives me peace. There was a time when I believed keeping relationships intact, no matter the cost, was strength. I thought endurance meant love. I thought silence meant wisdom. I thought if I just gave a little more, waited a little longer, swallowed a little deeper, things would return to what they used to be. But time corrected that. Holding on while something slowly wears you down is not always strength. Often it's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of admitting what you wanted isn't what you have. Fear of accepting that something you relied on was never truly safe. And when you face that fear honestly, you stop trying to force life into shapes it refuses to hold. Some relationships grow quieter. Some become distant. Some fade without an official ending. And that used to upset me. I used to wonder if I should have tried harder, if I should have been softer, if I should have tolerated more. Now I understand something I wish every woman could understand earlier. Not everything that fades is a loss. Sometimes it's a release. Sometimes peace looks like distance. I don't have the energy anymore for relationships that feel heavy. I don't have time for constant misunderstandings. I don't have the desire to depend on someone who has shown me, even gently, that they can't be depended on. That doesn't make me cruel. It makes me careful. Carefulness is not building walls so high nobody can reach you. Carefulness is knowing where the door is and choosing who you let walk through it. And this is another truth I learned late, but I want to give it to you now. You can love people and still not trust them with everything. For a long time, I believed love meant total trust. I thought if you loved someone, you should hand them every key. But love is a feeling. Trust is a decision. And decisions should be based on reality, not on hope. There are people I love that I would never rely on in a crisis. Not because they're monsters, because I know their patterns. I know where they disappear. I know where they avoid responsibility. I know how they behave when pressure arrives. And instead of arguing with it, I accept it. I stop demanding people be something they've never been. That acceptance has brought me more peace than any confrontation ever did. Now I want to say something practical, especially for anyone older watching this, or anyone caring for someone older. If you still have control over your life, your finances, your home, your medical decisions, protect that quietly and firmly. Don't hand it away too early for comfort. Don't hand it away because you feel guilty. Don't hand it away because you're afraid you'll look untrusting. Don't hand it away because you think family automatically means safe. Because once control is gone, it is very hard to reclaim. And the world does not hand dignity back easily once it's been taken. When I say I trust myself first, I'm not saying I don't love others. I'm saying I refuse to make my survival dependent on someone else's mood, schedule, or priorities. That is where my peace comes from now. I won't pretend it's effortless. There are evenings that feel quiet in a way that stings. There are mornings when you remember how simple it felt to believe someone would always have your back. Those feelings don't disappear because we're human, but they don't own me anymore. I acknowledge them, and then I return to what is real. I have survived loss. I have survived disappointment. I have survived change. I am still here. I can still think. I can still choose. I can still guide my own life. That is enough. So if you're listening, especially if you're younger, take this as advice from an older woman who has loved, trusted, been disappointed, forgiven, and finally learned. Be kind. Yes, love people. Yes, enjoy relationships. Of course. But don't abandon yourself in the process. Don't give away your peace and call it loyalty. Don't give away your voice and call it love. Don't give away your independence and call it family. Trust slowly. Watch quietly. Protect your center. And above all, make sure the one person you can always count on is the one you see in the mirror. Because when everything else shifts, and it will, your relationship with yourself is what will either hold you up or let you fall. Thank you for listening to an old woman say what took her nearly 90 years to learn. If something I said hit a nerve, don't rush to argue with it. Sit with it. Look at your life honestly. Look at who has earned your trust through action, not words. And then make one choice this week that protects your peace, quietly, firmly, without apology.